Greetings all, welcome to the Sword Lab. Today we have another review for another Lk Chen sword sent to me for review. This is the Lk Chen Snow Peak. This is a replica of a Republic of China era Jian. Now the Republic of China was in effect after the Qing dynasty and in the beginning of the 20th century, from 1912 to I believe it was 1946.
Wrong!
So the Republican era of China, or the Republic of China, is a very influential period for modern Kung Fu practitioners. This sword right here is the direct descendant
Wrong!
of our modern Tai Chi and Kung Fu practice swords that we use in the sport today. The era from which this came, the early 20th century, however, is the era where most of the things that we practice today as modern practitioners really got their start. The idea that the Chinese martial arts are ancient and go back thousands of years, while maybe true in a kind of ethnographic sense, is not precisely true for the practices that we have today. One of these is, of course, the practice of Jian. So during the era, this was the sword that was used to create a lot of the forms and drills and practices that have evolved into traditional martial arts that we practice today. You will see a lot of the forms and things done in period manuals with these type of Jian. Features that we have from the period is this, some people call it an ace of spade guard. You have the kind of gourd shaped three-lobed or six-lobed pommel that becomes three-lobed later on, but you can see some definite similarities between the shapes as they become standardized. The lanyard right here, this is the origin for the tassels that you see on wushu weapons. This is of course unadorned, it's just a lanyard, but as you see we have two little things here, and oftentimes these little decorations, which are common for New Year's and weddings and good luck ceremonies and that kind of thing, would be added here probably for dress. Used a lot in opera and in theater to show movement, and of course nowadays in the sport of wushu. And true to the period pieces, it rings. This is more than likely a function of having nice tight fittings. This is a nice steel guard, but as you see, it is hollow inside, creating a nice resonance chamber. You have good folded steel here. It's got a nice temper on it, so there's good flex, there's good resonance, and you get a nice bright ring from this particular sword. So another thing about these particular swords of the era, starting in about mid to late 19th century, maybe a little bit before, into the early 20th century, certain Western features started being incorporated into the design of sword blades. A kind of narrowing taper, a little bit thinner tip, not so parallel edges. Here we have a fuller. Some of them have a ricasso, which is a unsharpened, blunted piece right here. But all of those things kind of go into this basic trend at the time of kind of integrating Western ideas and things into Kung Fu, into traditional Chinese martial arts. One of the biggest movements there was the Taiyu, or the Tu movement, which was a physical culture movement, which was based a lot on German calisthenics and Western sports, and a lot of the ideals that we practice today in Chinese martial arts as a physical culture, as a way of life, all of that kind of thing, really got their start in the Republican era, and because of the mingling of Western ideas and all of that. And this sword is a perfect example of that synthesis. Okay, so now the sword itself. This sword, like I said, is about 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. Wrong! Or so. I'll put the actual weights. The scabbard here is covered with a kind of faux leather, which is something that Lk Chen does a lot. I believe it is period accurate, as in there are examples with this type of scabbard here. The fittings here for the hangers and the chape are extremely traditional, and anybody that does Kung Fu or Tai Chi now will probably react to those there. The handle is made of ray skin. Well, not made of, it's covered in ray skin. Now, this can be a little rough at first. Your hand does get used to it, and after it does, you have a very superior grip on this particular handle here. So that's that. The guard is kind of unadorned. There's no decorations, carvings, or anything like that on the face of it. It's just a nice, clean shape. This angled back, there is argument over whether the backward shape or the forward shape is better. Both are found on swords of the period, so it's anybody's guess. We've tried it with some practice swords that have different shaped guards, and we haven't noticed a whole lot of difference between either one. So if it does make a difference, it probably makes a difference that is so slight you wouldn't really notice it. Okay, so the blade is a very beautiful blade. It has a nice central fuller that goes down just about to the last fourth of the blade, right there. It's got a pretty thick profile there. The edge is keen, and you can really get it moving. Edge alignment, very easy, very simple. These handles, excellent. So as a cutter, it is very, very good. The pattern on the blade, I don't know if you can see the pattern here. I'll put some pictures up if not. It's the very nice aesthetic that Lk Chen puts in the pattern welds, the pattern welded blades that he does. You also have the option on the site for a spring steel blade, which is just mono steel. So whichever. I do recommend, if you have the extra money when you're buying one of these, to spring for the pattern weld. The pattern weld really makes it a nice thing to show off when you're practicing in the sun and you get a glint of it and you see that pattern. It's fairly nice. And these were features that people looked for in swords in the past. So, as I said, it's fairly heavy. So, if you're used to only using practice weapons in your sword forms, you're going to probably need some time to get used to this. It's going to be much more substantial. It's going to be much more tip heavy. Let's see where the balance point is right about there up from the guard, but because the guard is so substantial, that's going to place it up further from the hand than maybe some people are used to. It's not something that you can't get used to, and it is something that would probably benefit people, as using a heavier weapon will increase the metabolic tax on the body. You'll be able to get more out of your practice. You know, even setting aside any ideas of realism and fighting for your life with swords and stuff like that, which really doesn't happen anymore. At least not in this country yet. But we're always waiting. Anyway, so as a weapon, if you do kung fu or you do tai chi or any type of modern Chinese martial art, modern traditional, modern wushu, you know, any of those, this is probably something that you would like to pick up. It's very historical. You're going to see this type of sword in all of your manuals that you look up, or if you do, but you will still see it through other means as well. So it's a very iconic piece. Also, as I said, most of the forms and exercises that we do today were created with this weapon in mind. Now, a lot of people will say, well, this is because it's for dueling and all of that. Maybe. The thing is about this period, we have a lot of printed material. We have lots of manuals how to use these. We have some writings about how to make them. We have lots and lots of accounts of fights and wrestling matches and brawls and all kinds of things, not just from Chinese sources, but from Western sources, which were in the area as well. We don't have any record of any sword duels in that period, even from Western sources, even from onlookers, even from that. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't happen. It just means that we don't have any record of them, and we don't have anything but hearsay. We do know that during this time, though, different types of competitive fencing sports were being developed. One, of course, being one that I am very involved in, which is Duan Bing. If you're into Chinese martial arts and you do Jian forms or any type of Jian practice in your martial art, I highly recommend you picking this up. This will require little more than physical adaptation to the moves and things that you are used to performing. Now, if you're doing some of those really crazy wushu forms with lots of spinning and moving and all that kind of thing, this might be a little limiting to you. But either way, it is a beautiful piece, very historic, and very important to modern practitioners. So go and check that out. You can find it on Lk Chen's website. They also have it at Cult of Athena now, I believe. You get the choice of the different steels on the Lk Chen website, so that's probably your best bet to go there. Go check out the Lk Chen Snow Peak, bring a little bit of historical fun to your practice and a little bit of physical challenge. Until next time, patience, practice, perseverance.